Yes, that was Coloured Stone with Black Boy. All right, so how have you been?
It's been a struggle.
Yeah.
You know, I just got back from Vanuatu.
Must have been interesting.
It was more than that. It was terrifying. And Vanuatu itself is devastated. And emotionally, I guess I am too, but it's wonderful to be here with my family in Australia. It's an honor to be here, and I'm very grateful to you for everything you've done to make this possible.
Well, glad to have you here, Uncle. Yeah, if anyone doesn't know, Uncle was just in Vanuatu during the, was it Cyclone Pam?
Cyclone Pam?
Yeah, which has totally devastated the country. You know, we have to give our thoughts out to our brothers and sisters in Vanuatu, help them out any way we can possible, I think. But we're just going to have a general discussion about some issues tonight, just back and forth, and hopefully you enjoy it. So, when you were in Vanuatu, what was your first ideas of the place? Like, I haven't been there yet myself.
Well, I've been in Melanesia before.
Yep.
You know, I've been to Fiji twice, Papua New Guinea,
Yep.
PNG.
Mm-hmm.
And on this trip, before I got to Vanuatu, I had been in New Caledonia.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't really a new experience.
Other than the
warmth of the people really stood out.
Yeah, they are very, like,
It's a beautiful place.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's just heartbreaking what has happened to them, but it's no less heartbreaking in terms of what has happened to our sisters and brothers here.
Mm-hmm.
So as an African American, it's a big deal to me.
Yep.
To
It's a
be
big
with
deal
the
to us
traditional owners of the land.
as well, that you come and, you know, you're actually spending the time to...
Oh no, it's really it's an honor.
It's a
and a
likewise,
privilege. And I have a lot to tell the sisters and brothers in the United States about, because like you, we're about global black unity.
Mm-hmm.
And our sisters and brothers don't know a lot about our family here, so it gives me an opportunity to learn firsthand.
I think that goes both ways, really. Like, the more we find out about each other, the more we connect the dots, I think, in the end, really. Like,
And the more frightening it is to those who attempt to oppress us and separate us.
and that's the reason for that separation in the
Big
first
time.
place. Like,
I think
people
that
have to
there's a
realize that.
fear. As a group, maybe Run DMC, I don't recall. They had a song called Fear of a Black Planet.
No, Public Enemy. Yeah.
Public Enemy.
Yeah.
And it's very, very real.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite albums too. That, like that, they were a massive influence on the indigenous community here in
Good.
Australia. Like,
Good.
Chuck D still stays whenever he comes. He stays in Redfern. So
Yeah. And I think wasn't Professor Griff a part of that group too?
yeah, Professor Griff was. Yeah.
Now he I know personally. There's a multi-part DVD. I don't know if you've seen it, but certainly you've heard about it, called Hidden Colors.
Yes. Yes.
And he was in it, and I was in it, and a lot of other people too. So I would like to think that we are living at the dawn of a new age, a new era that marks, characterized by a resurgence of black people, of African people. Melanesians are people all over the place. And what's, I guess, one of the most interesting things is that wherever we find ourselves, whether it be Australia or the Pacific or Europe, Africa, the Americas, even Asia, black people are at the very bottom. But even though we're at the bottom, we're rising to get back to the top. And there are people just like you and me and my brother here, pockets of African people, pockets of black people all over the world who are struggling to regain our power.
That's very true. Like, I always think that myself. Like, that there's a reason for this disconnection amongst us. Like, it wasn't by a mistake. You know, it didn't happen to any other people in the world. You don't see the Asians divided up into, you know, Japanese, only the Japanese, only the Koreans. They come together still. But black people have been divided up into small pockets of, you know, like that. Even us, we say, I'm Aboriginal, I'm not related to my Melanesian brothers, but we are. We all. It was a black world at one stage before we were chopped up into little small segments.
And still, we've managed to survive all of that. And that's, you know, we're a very resilient people, a very strong people.
We are very strong people. And like you said, I think it is a common thing too, that we have to see that there is a common way we have been treated wherever we are around the world. It's not just by mistake. Like, it's not like just in America it's happened, or not just in Brazil it's happened, or not just in Australia. It's happened to us globally. And then we have to realize that that is the reality of it.
Yeah, that's true. We have a remarkable history but we also have a history of resistance.
Yes, we do.
And that's, I guess, the theme that I want to push most while I'm here.
Yep.
I've learned that we are more than just victims, but we are survivors.
Yep.
You know, one of our greatest heroes is a man named Malcolm X.
Yes.
And we call Malcolm, among other things, our black shining prince.
Yep.
And Malcolm, when it came to slavery, he used to say, cotton picking don't move me. And I've gone beyond the point of seeing us just as victims.
Yes, yes.
But as people who have resisted victimization and people who have struggled in the face of overwhelming odds to maintain our basic sense of humanity. And I think that the sisters and brothers in this country probably personify that as much as anybody on this planet.
Yeah, I think it's very correct in what you're saying there. Like, we have to look at our life before the struggle, you know. It's
Big
not
time.
just the struggle. It wasn't just what happened to us. We have an ancient history that we'd have to recognize, you know, longer than any other people in the world, that we have to look at.
And we have to frame our history. We have to define it.
We have to
write it
yes.
from our perspective. Talk about it from our perspective.
Yes.
There's an African proverb that goes, until the lion has his historian, the hunter will always be a hero.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite proverbs.
Oh, it's a powerful statement.
Yes.
It's a powerful statement.
You tell your own story. I've always like.
And then there's another one that says, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you've been. Now, we are told in the U.S. that our history is either irrelevant or it was a long time ago and we have to get over it. But all strong people emphasize their history all the time. Weak people do not.
Yep.
And for us to be truly strong again, I think we have to look at what made us great. And to grasp that, again, you have an African concept called Sankofa.
Yep.
And that means to reach back and fetch it.
Yep.
And so that's what we're in the process of doing right now.
Yeah. It's like, for us, we see it as I think it's a circular thing too. You know, we're going back to. We're not going forward always, but we have to bring that circle back to.
Well, you know, that's
culture.
one of the things that I want to learn from you. And while I'm here, I want to begin to look at history, not from a European perspective, but I want to see how we look at history and how we looked at history before the invasion or intrusion of Europeans. So there's much to learn, and it's very exciting to me.
Yeah. And same thing's happening here. Like, we've had, like, just recently I read this book called The Dark Emu, and it talked about the agricultural way we used Australia. Whereas they always tell us we're hunters and gatherers, but this is saying there's a vast amount of evidence that we farmed it, but in a different way to Europeans. We didn't set it up so it's like controlling nature. We molded nature to work along with us in a way.
And worked in harmony with nature.
We didn't destroy the earth from our farming. Whereas you see the modern farming, they keep on. There's no, after you fertilize a place, you have to keep on fertilizing. They're saying the way we did it was just, it was natural, you know. So
no, I think the European way is to dominate and to control, and our way is to live in harmony. Yeah, and I think that that's something that, again, we can learn a lot from. A balance, yes. Our mother's in big trouble, and that Vanuatu is a perfect example of that. Like that was an example of climate change. All the people that are trying to deny this climate change. People are dying from this stuff, you know. It's not like, and it's us who are affected the most from climate change. It's not, you know, Europe. It's not, you know, these other places. It's Africa and the Pacific, you know. Oh, the world is changing. But we are most affected by this climate change. You know? I mean, it's not the westernized countries. It's the people outside of the westernized countries who don't have this power to control the climate debate, I guess. Oh, it takes many different forms, and the effects are very, very adverse. In Africa, almost all of North Africa is desert now. Yeah, I've seen there's massive droughts now and stuff. But there was in places that used to have some of the highest rainfall in the world, which is, you know, it's not a natural occurrence. Yeah. So we have to recognise that there is climate change, and unless we do something about it, it's only going to get worse. You know. So. Well, you talk about a history that's 60,000 years old, perhaps older. 200 years. That's a monument. And so what we've gone through the last 200, 300 years is really just a moment in time. It's important to look at it in a larger perspective. Yeah, that's very true. We'll get back into a track now, thanks to Uncle, and we'll come back into the discussion. This is the People's Radio, the voice of the people, not the machine.
Yes, that was Coloured Stone with No More Boomerangs. Back into the discussions. So what are we talking about now? We got a brother Rodney here, aka Felon. How you going, cuz?
Alright, bro, how you doing? Tired.
Tired. I think everyone's feeling it. You wanna? What's going on? You're saying coming up? What protest is coming up?
The one on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot coming up.
Where's the one on a Thursday?
There's actually two going on, but the one that the Redfern Embassy is involved in is at Parliament House.
Yeah, New South Wales Parliament House, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In near Martin Place, eh?
What time's it starting?
I think it's around midday. I bet, but don't quote me on that. You'll have to have a look on the page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So check out the Redfern Embassy tent.
It's only just gone up today.
Alright, so check out the rate page if you want any information.
The rate page will have it up, but there's also actually like the national page of the same rally going around, and the Sydney details and pages on there for both the two Sydney rallies.
So they're both on the same date,
Same
16th?
date, same time. This Thursday.
So what's that, the 18th?
I don't know the day.
Yeah, the 18th.
2 days away or something.
Yeah. No, that'll be the 19th, yep. So that's also we got the fundraiser for RAID as well. We've got Uncle coming in doing a speech about the global struggle of black liberation.
Yeah.
Make sure everyone gets down there. That's in Marrickville at the community centre there.
Yeah. This rally, as I said, I didn't say, but is for, because it's for the 150 communities that have been closed in WA at the moment, and also the embassy over there that's currently under threat.
Oh, I don't know. Everyone saw the other day the police on their horseback trying to do the old school battle rush on us.
And we support them in the same way because we're under the same threat at the moment. So.
That's it. You've got to keep a solidarity up between all of us.
150 communities
in
Western Australia.
Alone, yes. There's already started at the embassy that I was saying they've been trying to shut down over there. People from communities that already been bulldozed have now homeless.
I think I understand about the embassy, but what is the rationale for shutting down these communities in Western Australia?
They said it's a lifestyle choice to us.
Forever.
That's what Abbott said. Tony Abbott, our Prime Minister, said that we have a lifestyle choice that we choose to live in the remote community. But miners don't have a lifestyle choice, but only we have a lifestyle choice to live in these remote communities. So, as it's a lifestyle choice, he doesn't think he should fund us living in a remote community.
So they want to cut the water and electricity and services off, and they're not even providing any other options. So that's what I'm saying. I was saying there's communities that have already been bulldozed.
But there's also white communities too. There's white communities also in the same area that they're not bulldozing. So it's purely a race.
In one
thing.
area there was 3 communities and only two Aboriginal communities.
And how old are these communities?
They're pretty much set up from the mission days.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. They're established off the old cattle stations, so it's not.
I mean, they've already been put on the outskirts for all these times anyway, but now they're being made.
So things are not getting better for Aboriginal people.
Oh no, they're good. This country, I reckon we're in a worse state in this day and age than we were in the past.
Because of the current government?
Partly.
He's just gone real hard out without trying to pretend, but no, it's been a long term. All the governments are the same agenda, really.
He's just overt about it. He's just in our face. He'll say it to us. Like, the other guys will do it to us too, but they'll just do it slowly behind the door. Because people feel like...
And when the others get in, they don't
change the policy.
Any of the ones that this one's brought in. They're quite happy to roll with them.
And they're trying to bring in I heard they're trying to plan a WA intervention now, which is like the Northern Territory invasion. They're starting to set up these pedophile stories they're circulating, which was the whole way they set up the Northern Territory invasion with pedophile stories that were never found. These imaginary pedophiles.
Well, the statistics were that it's less than in other white communities.
So you would say, and this is a question, that life is harsher for our people in Western Australia than in other parts of Australia?
Currently, they're under attack. Yeah. Around the country, it's many different ways and multiple angles they attack us on. So we're all under attack. But just currently, they are
They got the
majorly under
minerals. They're
attack.
trying to get the minerals too.
They're
over
literally
there.
just walking in and bulldozing, and so that's the urgency too, because it's happening and it's just bang. Yeah.
What part of Australia would you say is the most progressive in terms of Indigenous people? Where is the front line? Is it New South Wales? Is it the embassy? Where are people? Where's activism, I guess, the most intense right now?
Currently, in the last 12 to 18 months, the movement's been growing huge across the whole country. And a lot of people are networking, and there's embassies popping up around the entire country.
I mean, we have now. We got like what? We got one. We got Brisbane, Sydney. You got one in Perth. You got one in Adelaide too. One in Campbelltown.
Melbourne's starting up soon again.
So one in Canberra still. The Canberra's the original one still.
Yeah. But the movement's growing across the whole country at the moment. So the front line's the whole country. But I do think, not to like in the city here in Sydney, it's important with what we're fighting down at Redfern, because it's a place that's got a history of our people, and it's the first place that was bought and owned back. And if you take that fight out of the main place here, it just continues to push it to the edges.
Mm-hmm. It's a good way to hide us.
The thing that's happening in WA is it's remote, and that's why they've already put a bulldozer through, because it's out of the way. So the more you push people out like that, it just puts things to the edges and out of sight, out of mind.
Back to the fringe doing days.
Yeah. Okay. But the front lines across the whole country, the movement's been growing really a lot, regrowing in the last 18 months or more.
And you're encouraged by that?
Yeah, it is good to see the people starting to fight back and get out there and have their say and take their own voice back.
It's good to see the younger generation coming up too, and not just be stagnant where it's only like the older people doing all the fight. It's good to see it's cross-generational.
Well, in the United States, we have something similar to that too. You have right now, the big thing, the most obvious thing is protests against the shootings of unarmed black men.
Yep.
And, you have three in particular. Recently, you have this brother named Mike Brown, who was shot with his hands up in the air, pleading, don't shoot.
We've done rallies.
Yeah, we did a rally for him here.
And we did a rally for Ferguson and for Mike Brown and for...
Because we're going for the same things.
In the same period of time, over 2 months, we lost 5 people by police murders.
So you call those deaths in custody?
No, we're changing the language to murders in custody.
Murders in custody.
These are actually bullets.
They are known as deaths in custody. We're starting to try and change
But it's the same phenomenon.
It's police killing people.
And there was 5 within 2 months.
5?
Yep.
All over the country?
That was 5 in
New South Wales and
WA.
We had the fella up in
it was 5
Tweed
across the country then.
Yeah.
But the thing about WA was we were doing one for Jalika around the country, a countrywide, nationwide protest, and the same day we were doing that, a fella died again in WA. But that 5 was across the country in about 2 months.
None of the police are ever indicted or persecuted?
No, never.
The history, one's been charged, but no one's ever been, he got let off. He got that one got awarded the highest award a cop can get in the country. And he's continued to have a history of doing these things too.
Yeah, he's found about the Palm Island. That's the Palm Island
that's
case.
Hurley I'm talking about there. But not one policeman. That's the only one he's ever been charged. Not one's ever been convicted of anything. And there's plain evidence.
Like the guy of the Hurley case, he died from the coroner said his injuries were the same as being hit by a small truck. And he was in a police, his only crime was he was...
And that was at Palm Island?
Yeah, that was the Palm Island one.
But, the ones here as well.
So my point is we're hoping that it's a movement, because what we have a tendency to do is react. We're outraged, we're angry, and then it dissipates, and then there's another one, and we're outraged and we're angry. We protest for a moment. So what we need is a sustained movement.
Yeah.
And it's up to the young people.
Yeah, we've got to educate our people too. I think more and more. The more we educate our people, the bigger the swell we can get. I think in the end, you know what I mean.
I think that's the movement we've been seeing a bit more in the last, as I said, 12 to 18 months, is that continuous actual movement, not reactionary, because it has been a continued one across the country.
And this movement, is it producing new leaders, or you have a generational group of leaders that, you know, when I was here the last time, you know, not the last time, but in the course of my travels here, I've met Gary Foley. I've met a brother named Marin Duyaner, Sister Graceland Smallwood. Or do you have young people like you all?
Yeah, there's some new people coming up. But
well, we even don't like to use word leaders, really, amongst what we do. We're just all community and people speak.
Okay.
We also don't all have speaking rights, and as we get it's still under community protocol and via elders and past.
Okay.
I don't like the word leaders, but past people who've, you know, been involved and done their thing.
No, I respect that.
But there is young people, as Ben was saying, coming up and becoming a lot more active within that movement.
Okay.
And thus, I guess more of them are getting a bit more
militant, a bit.
Yeah, and good, speaking more and being able to speak more.
There's more pride.
Protocols.
When I was growing up, like, you know the difference when we were growing up, because like it was different the way, like, we got more pride now as a people, I think, which is good. You know what I mean? It's starting to come as a strength in us that we can all see and use now, instead of just feeling that we're just, you know, divided and conquered no more. So it's good to see it's building up. Like all the young kids, that's what we need more and more of, really. We've got to have it's got to be a more total, like, representation of us. Can't just be one of, like, small cliques. We've got to get the movement where it is the actual movement of the whole people coming.
Keep networking.
Yeah. It's a fight, but, you know, it's a good fight. That's the main thing. So we'll get back into some music and we'll come back. This is Zenith with Simplify.
Country, what do you see? How people better to the knees, it what's poverty? Well, it's hard to go on, cause you get pulled down. They call it government, pushing right off so bad. So when we try and go it forward, you like to pull us down. We got the own tracks, you like those potatoes down. It's all good now, we getting stronger. We gonna last forever longer. So don't ask me why. Start to cry. Don't ask me why. Hey, the law ain't simplified. Don't ask me why. A little one start to cry. Don't ask me why. Hey, the law ain't simplified. Little one, don't you cry. No, don't you cry. Is this what that? Yes, from your eyes, and you won't be alright. You are so strong, you must move on, and you know right from wrong. So, don't ask me why. A little one start to cry. Don't ask me why. Hey, the law ain't simplified. Don't ask me why. Yes, from your eyes, then you will be alright. You are so strong, you must move on, and you know right from wrong. So don't ask me why. A little one starts to cry. Don't ask me why. Hey, the law ain't simplified. Don't ask me why. A little one starts to cry. Don't ask me why. Hey, the law ain't simplified. Education systems, law systems, we all are victims. We're gonna stay strong, move on, support our little ones, their future.
Yes, that was Zenith. This is the People's Radio, the voice of the people, not the machine. Oh, we're going to get back into it, having a discussion tonight. It's pretty interesting. I'm enjoying it. What were you about to say, brother?
No, I was trying to get a handle on, you know, what we feel are, what Aboriginal folk feel are, the pressing issues. At least I gotta break it down sometimes into, like, you know, digestible chunks. I mean, if I'm in the city, I'm trying to understand what are, like, the pressing issues of Aboriginal people. All right, what's on their minds? What's really at the forefront of the problem in the minds of the folk and whatnot? All right, and how do we address that? I want to know that. Okay. Sometimes I just gotta break it down to digestible parts. So
shit, I want some sovereignty, bro. What about you?
History.
I could do with some sovereignty
on what's going on. You know what I mean? Can we have that conversation?
Depends how long you've got. And
Yeah.
It's people we're just as messed up and fractured, so other people will have different opinions on what is on their mind at the time. We're looking for sovereignty, we're looking for rights. Went right down the road here, we're fighting for housing. Across the country, other people are fighting different things in their own communities. It's a multifaceted attack. And as I told people, that it's not a systematic racism in this country, it's a systemic one, that pertains to the whole system. Every part of the system is systematic racist
based on a racist construction.
Every part, and we're attacked on multiple angles and in different areas in different ways, although it's all the same way, really. But, yeah. So what's on people's mind in the time that...
Then I'll put it to you this way, you know what I mean? I'm going to make an assumption here. You tell me if I'm wrong. Now, I was taught to never assume that the system going to change of its own volition, unless there's an angle in it. My question is, if we assume that to be the case, so that we're not expecting the system to change, and we're now then looking for our response to the system to change, how we engage that response? We talked before in the break. We were talking about what we used to do in terms of waking people up, making them more conscious of the decisions that they can make to affect their lives and whatnot. So I wanted to know about things because I need to know, I want to find out more about how to engage the community, how to be part of that change. How do we talk to folk? How do we get them, access to the kind of thinkers you guys are here, besides the radio,
Again, as I guess, I don't know, it's harder, and there's two. I mean, one, there is a hell of a lot of shit out there people can research now. They just need to look into...
Yeah, the internet is a wonderful tool, people.
They need to look into the right names and people and research them, and they'll find the movement and the story there a lot. I guess one part of that, too, I guess it gives them more of an effective conversation when they come to what I'm about to say is the more important and second part, which is coming down to our communities and spending time. Even though that's what we tell people.
And come down and listen
at
too.
At the embassy, we get them on big days.
They'll be coming down and talking.
Got a rally, but people want to ask me everything, whether it's about the movement, whether it's about culture, whether it's about something spiritual, all on that day. It's like, nah, today we're here because we've got something to do. Come and spend time with us. That fire is our school, and people, but it's time. I mean, even our own people, we're trying to reconnect, decolonise and get back to culture and learn and even be more informed on how we can be effective in the movement. And so others coming in, it's a long-term thing. Come and sit, you learn about us, you learn about all of that stuff just by being there. And knowledge gets shared around that too. And connecting, networking. It's about talking, engaging with people.
Yeah, gotta make that connection, people. That's all we ask. But don't be trying to tell us what to do.
Yeah, it's about,
we recognise,
it's about engaging.
We welcome allies, but we don't welcome people trying to take over.
It's letting our people have a voice that's been taken for way too long. And there's a great movement of support along with our own movement lately from wider community. But there's also some people who speak out of place. And as I said, my own people don't all have, I don't have speaking rights on certain stuff. People got to know their place and not take our voice.
Funny you should say that, about knowing our place. Funny you should say that. One of the other things I was hoping we could get some commentary from Brother Runoko on is, because I think it's valuable that we learn from other indigenous Aboriginal folk who are also struggling to gain their sovereignty, gain their voice and such. I mean, what is it that we could possibly learn from other communities that are struggling to regain a sense of cultural unity, solidarity in other locales and whatnot? I mean, one of the things that's important to me that I see is language. All right, I see that in certain places in the Aboriginal community, trying to hold on to that.
That's one of the, I said there's multiple tools and things they use. That's the one of the biggest they use against us, is this, take our languages from us, and that disconnects you from land. And
spirituality too, give us another religion.
You can't sing your song lines if you can't speak your language.
Absolutely.
And that's part of the big movement and the decolonising and that's happening at the moment. Besides the political side of our movement, as I said, a lot of us are making that effort to decolonise and reconnect to our own stuff and try and find language and that's even lost.
Who do you think is being the most successful at that, though? Who do you think is being more? Because I know.
Yeah, but that's I wouldn't say.
Success is really based on the time of colonisation. Yeah, that's how I see it. Like, language is very strong up north.
There is some people who've
but that's only due to colonisation. They came out later up north.
But that doesn't mean their story and their connection to people and mob is any less valuable. It doesn't ideally, that's what you.
I think too. We have to be wary of culture is a fluent thing.
Indeed.
Culture is not stagnant.
Indeed.
And when we try to fit this idea of what traditional culture is, if we always be stuck in this back thing, culture keeps on moving. We adapt, we change. It's always been that way. You can't just say it was. It didn't just happen in 1788. We weren't doing the same thing 20,000 years ago. We were doing 40,000 years ago, and so there's a fluidity of culture that we have to acknowledge too.
Right.
There is a modern day Aboriginal culture. It's not, people's it's all in traditional culture, but traditional culture is what culture is whatever we make it. Really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really what culture is.
With the city people and people who have got a lot of disconnection, I guess.
It's a modern identity.
Cross with that. And a lot of the people in the cities who fight this stuff, by bringing that noise, are giving other people the ability back in their other places to actually have some kind of opportunity to hold that full old ways that they still kind of live. Because they're trying to live it. Except currently they're all being kicked out.
They were trying to live it till Abbott got into fucking politics. But it's pretty crazy when you think about it. Today,
and that is the thing.
2015, we're still getting kicked off our land.
This is the national movement that's happening at the moment on Thursday. This isn't just a rally in Sydney. There's one around the entire country happening.
So every capital city.
In the communities themselves, in the capital cities. And it's a one-day, an entire movement of the same. And it's people networking ourselves.
And given how, I think blatant, and I consider myself, a brother, but also an outsider, and I want to just, in terms of just having an outside perspective anyway. And one of the things that, struck me is that 150 communities were closed. And you have you could say something about the media response to how that was put out there. It was just really nonchalantly
What
just
media
put
response?
across.
Yeah, there really
Exactly.
was.
Other than we're closing,
Like,
that's about
other
it.
than the bulldozers pulled up, that's about it.
That's about it. You could talk about that. I mean, the you know.
I mean, the thing is, for how many months previous to that, you already had utopia without water and electricity. Like,
Yeah, they haven't had water in that community for over, what, 5
Right.
months? No running water, you know.
Right.
This is
This
like,
one's-
they pay rates like everybody else in the country. It's ridiculous that there's two worlds in Australia. There's a black Australia and there's Australia for everybody else.
the NT invasion, that 6 months before that happened, that community asked for help, not because we get into our kids or because we're all drunks or anything like that, but for services like doctors and
Basic human
education.
services.
Yeah.
Right.
Forget
Mel
about
Brunner at the
public
time
transport up
was,
there.
Minister, he said basically go and get stuffed. 6 months later, the 99-year land lease ran out on those places. And the old fellas there went, how about you go stick it? We're not going to re-sign because...
And now
we're
they
not
kick us
doing
off.
it." And so suddenly we were getting into our kids drinking and not sending them to school and blah, blah, blah. It's a land grab because we weren't going to sign the leases, so they just kept mining and did an invasion, intervention. And they didn't go in with doctors or
And the army.
nurses or counsellors or anything like
Right.
that. They went in with the army and the police.
Right.
How are they going to help if any of those other issues were there?
Yeah, I don't know.
And
The army has a...
statistically, as I said, originally all those stats were less than in white communities.
Yep. They were non-existent. Pedophilia was non-existent in that, pretty much.
Pretty much.
But it was white pedophiles preying on our kids. That's the only thing about it.
But then, since they've been there, the truancy's gone up, alcoholism, suicide's gone up.
Domestic violence.
8-year-olds and 11-year-olds killing themselves.
Yeah.
Everything bad's risen. Oh, they're taking the kids now these days, especially up there, but across the country at 500% higher rate than the official stolen generation.
Right.
So,
We're locked up at rates higher. What is it? What are the
and
rates?
this was all around a mining lease not being re-signed. That,
WA Part 2 coming soon.
yeah, that's what WA is exactly. They're wanting that land to dig it up.
There's a mining boom. You got to ride that mining boom. man.
Yeah, I mean, you can't discuss, internal Australian politics without talking about, mining interests in Australia. And I
We
find
can't discuss Aboriginal politics without talking about mining interests, really, because that's what we're at their whim. If
It's
they don't
the
find that,
gorilla
like they gave
at
that
the
land
dinner
back.
table.
Remember, they gave that land back to us, bro. And they said the deal was we get everything above the soil. If they found anything, land comes straight back to them. Like, how are you giving anything back to? How's they giving back land to us? It's like, it's ridiculous what they're doing to us. Like, some of the stuff you're just like, man, it's a common sense. Is there any common sense out there? Like, any? You know what I mean? 'Cause shit, I don't see it. Anyway, on that subject, we'll get back into some music and we'll come back into discussion. Hope you're enjoying it. This is the People's Radio.
They've gone from stealing bikes to stealing lives. So many young hands gripping stainless steel knives. See a kid they don't like, they're messing him up. What's wrong or what's right is giving less of a fuck. Sticking them up, left, right, stitching them up. Everything revolves around getting the cut. Middle fingers up, fisticuffs, pissing it up. Before the pen license, fisting the cuffs. They don't use them to pack shelves, they use them to pack cells. Up in the system before they even crack 12. You can paint a pretty picture using northern pastels, but it's black and white and the latter still sells. What kind of life is that? They're getting born and tagged. Teacher can't reach them, I'm getting fucking bored of that. They couldn't spell the name off the bat. I bet you they can tell you where to score a quarter at. They're growing up fast, they're growing up tough. They're giving back everything they never got as a pup. And if they want something, you're giving it up. If they want something, you're giving it up. They growing up fast, they're growing up tough. They're giving back everything they never got as a pup. And if they want something, you're giving it up. If they want something, you're giving it up. They say one bad apple can spoil a whole bunch. What if all you had was bad apples for lunch? What if all you had was all you could touch? And what if before you even had a dream you were crushed? They weren't raised wrong, they weren't raised at all. You watched the bell break and watched the cradle fall. And now you're surprised when the baby talks and he's asking, what the fuck are you staring for? Where their mothers, huh? Where's their fathers, huh? Here they come with all that fucking drama, bruh. Before you fix him, there's another one. And the problem's tenfold and the learning tricks younger, cuz. What you want ain't always what you get. Sometimes what you get is like a kick to the head. I guess you can chalk it up to cause and effect, but the core is all rotten and they gotta be fed. They're growing up fast, they're growing up tough. They're giving back everything they never got as a pup. And if they want something, you're giving it up. If they want something, you're giving it up. They growing up fast, they're growing up tough. They're giving back everything they never got as a pup. And if they want something, you're giving it up. If they want something, you're giving it up. It ain't worth it. Who cursed it? Point the fingers at the ones who birthed it. Brought to earth a brand new person. The same ones that called them all worthless and called them good for nothing. I call them cousin. I call them brother and sister. I still love them. Brother and sister, I still love them. Brother and sister, I still love them.
That was Briggs with Bad Apples. We're getting back into it. Hope you're enjoying the conversations tonight. I'm enjoying it. Some brain food for you. You got to start thinking about things a bit more, I think. So, what's our new subject? What's this one on the round table?
Can we bring
just
brother?
Happened a minute ago.
Oh, yeah. during the gap of the break there. Sorry, how bad.
We seem to get into some conversations that we wish we could add during the breaks. Oh, can we get Brother Runoko to back in the conversation, get some commentary? What we were discussing, what we were supposed to be discussing for the actual show?
Oh, it's pretty much this. We're just talking about our general views, like, an idea of what can go forward or how we can come together. That's my ideas of general philosophies.
There you go. Your brother just shared the poster.
Yeah. That's
People need to
Provoke.
get on and go to Provoke or Silverback page.
Yeah.
You'll see the rallies.
So don't forget the rallies are on the 19th. So it's his Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to find out the times, just check the rate page, and I'll let you know what times they're on.
Yeah, 12:30. That's on the 20th.
So the rally starts at 12:30.
12:30, Parliament House.
12:30 Parliament House.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts, Runoko, about this whole, like, what we're just, the discussion we just had, like?
Well, there's an African proverb that says only fools know everything.
Mm.
And so a lot of it for me is listening. Mm. And what I want to be able to do is have a coherent message to take back to black folk in the United States. I think that we can be inspired by the struggles of other people, other black people, but I don't think it necessarily means that those struggles are identical or that we have to change what we're doing. Mm-hmm. You know, you all have a tradition that's thousands and thousands of years old, and I think it would be presumptuous for me to come here to the other side of the world and suggest what you should and should not be doing. I think sometimes it's just incumbent to be humble and listen and see what we can learn rather than attempting to teach and and tell other sisters and brothers what they should be doing. I think that's very arrogant, and African Americans have a tendency to do that. Maybe because we are in the media so much, and the United States is such a powerful country, that there's a tendency to think that the sun sets on us, you know, that we are the center of the universe, and I don't think that's the case.
That's true. That's a very interesting point. And it's
I
true
think,
what you
too,
said.
that in the United States that we are suffering, how do I put it? 6 years ago, we elected a black man, you know, to be the most powerful person, I guess, in a sense, at least symbolically, in the world. And I think that a lot of us thought that we had achieved liberation with that. And so that's been a very, very learning experience, too. And so question becomes, now, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things about the election of Barack Obama twice now is that racism is live and well in the United States. Even the president of the United States, a black man, is regularly insulted on the basis of his race.
Yeah,
and I think that it shows that white supremacy is very deeply entrenched. For me, my struggle all the time is to talk about the accumulation of power, not morality, you know, but power, because that's the one thing that people respect. And so, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with listening and learning and not having, feeling like you have an obligation to teach and impart knowledge. But sometimes I think the greatest wisdom is to learn.
I think that's an important
part of our people's way anyways. And I guess that's what I was talking about, speaking rights too. You gotta know, you gotta learn when to shut up. You gotta learn when to listen. And sometimes you do speak though. Sometimes sharing knowledge is different to trying to teach.
That's right.
We can share knowledge and experience and learn off each other. But yeah, that listening thing is it's a respect thing that we get taught.
Yeah, that's a big problem we have, I guess, for us amongst our community, with outsiders trying to come in and always push their views upon us, and we should do things how they should do it. And it's mainly you white people. Let's not, you know, play games about it, you know. So it's good, like, that it's a important part of recognising, I think, that even within our own community, we have to recognise when we don't know something, you know, and have that decency to let someone who does know guide us, you know what I mean? Like,
Get rid of ego.
we can't
ego.
kill the ego, save the nation, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's right. And the other point you made too, even that's another thing that our people, our movement, there's the big thing about wanting to not actually even recognise their system or want them to recognise us, their government, because that's the thing people say. What's the point? There's no point you going into their system. It's not going to change anything. And there's an example you've had with Obama. Got there, but that's like with our people, we're wanting sovereignty and that, but that's part of that sovereignty movement, is not even recognising the government and people not thinking there's any purpose in it because we won't get any results from it.
Yeah, so they have to deal with us.
Well, you know, I've always wondered about that in terms of Aboriginal people. Such a small percentage of the total population. Like when you were talking about, I think, health-related issues, doctors and what have you. How many black doctors are there in this country? Black lawyers, black nurses, black people. I think, what do you have, one MP that's indigenous in this country?
We've got maybe 3. But
that's the other
none
one.
of them actually work
They're
for us.
all hand-picked, self-appointed leaders. And we don't even use the word.
A lot of Jesse Jacksons.
And they're hand-picked from the government, and they're not community voices. We could pretty much list the people that get given a voice, and they're not community grassroots voices. They're not the voices that the community and most people have.
Right now, today, who would be the people that you consider the greatest role models? Who are the people in this country that you respect the most? I know you don't like to use the word leader, but if we were going to use that word, who are the ones that you have the greatest respect for?
There's a lot of people.
I give respect to all the old people who fought for us, you know, like, whoever put this time into the struggle, you got to give them respect, because they struggled for us, you know.
The people that are still doing it, the ones who haven't sold out. Some of those ones with the voice or with the MPs used to be supposed activists, and they've all sold out and changed their views. And so the old people who are still sitting there, the ones that have been real from the start, they're still
the old people still ain't got no money.
They're the ones who are teaching us. They're the ones who are pushing any of the young people who are listening and learning to get up and fight. And I don't like to, the reason I'm not necessarily naming names is there's a few of them, and I don't want to leave other people out, and I don't like platforming people. It is across the board. I respect different people for different things, but the ones who've stuck true and are solid and haven't sold out.
In the United States, maybe Africa too, but I think that we have what might be called a Messiah complex. Mm-hmm. And we are looking for this great man or woman to come and take us by the hand.
I often idolise no man or woman or person because we all have faults. You can respect things they've done or learn off them, but you can't idolise anyone, you'll get let down.
But that Messiah complex is starting to build here. I know what you're saying, where it's the cult of the personality. It's more about the leader's personality than what they actually do, you know. It's like they tell you all this razzle dazzle. Yeah, we're doing all these things, but do they actually do these things?
No, I'm suggesting that what we are looking for in the United States is somebody to save us, somebody to do something for us that we don't seem to be prepared to do for ourselves.
I think a lot of our community have suffered that for a long time.
But
it's just the movement is starting to grow again.
Maybe that's a sign of oppressed people.
Would that you think that comes part of colonisation?
That's a part of that oppression and colonisation.
The religion, the Messiah comes into your mind. Until you're taught about a Messiah, you don't know about the Messiah complex. So you have to be.
That's the thing again with that. There's a lot of the sellouts and that too are pushing, the ones who have given the voice by the government, they're pushing for equality in a sense of having what the white fella has. We don't necessarily want that. We want our way of life. We want equality in a different sense, but we want our way of life. We don't want to have to do what they tell us in their way or live up to what their expectations of life is. This is our law should be in place. Our sovereignty has never ceded. Our law still runs over theirs. Their law is illegal. It is a criminal government in this country, and it always has been.
Well, maybe that's one of the differences between Australia and the United States, because I don't really see the United States as my country. You see, Africans were taken from Africa. Slaves didn't come from Africa. Africans were captured and enslaved and brought to a foreign country. Now, what you're struggling for is sovereignty. I cannot say that that's what we're struggling for. In fact, if you were to ask the average African-American what they're struggling for, they would be very, very hard-pressed to define that. Ultimately, they would say freedom or a better way of life. But that's a very, very vague notion in terms of what that constitutes. You know, but here you seem to be clear on that. You want sovereignty, right?
Yeah,
nah,
that's us, but that's
our
personally.
movement. There is other people who I would say they live in with more of a colonised mind, but there's other people in the community who would say different. They are looking because they've been brainwashed that's what they need. We've been fractured, and even as part of these communities, as we were talking before off air, and how that has the destruction of the communities, that then gives people the own disdain of some of their mob when they haven't realised how that's happened or why that's happened. Then when you've just grown up and seen it, because people who are coming down here are learning the story of the place black and white, because it's been pushed and hidden and done as we were talking about in those methods earlier.
Well, okay, here's the thing.
So that's a colonised mind, and it's a fractured community, and we are rebuilding that as much as possible. And there was the ways we were talking about that survival. You feed people, you can feed, if you're just trying to feed your kids, you don't give a shit about anything else, because that is your goal.
That's why they put us in
if we start working more as a community again, and we would again talking off air about how that destruction of that and when and why that's happened. But if you are a community that works together again and you feed each other, you look after each other, you then have time for knowledge and you have time to fight for the community, not just trying to feed your kid. But that's part of colonisation. That is the white European this system we're fighting's way is the individual. It's me. It's mine. They try to teach you that. That's not what we're about. Destructing our ways.
Like a good way to put it is, we had no word for I. There was no word in our languages for I before colonizer. It was all we. We're gonna eat. We're gonna be together. You know, it's not like I'm gonna eat. It's we're gonna eat. So everything was done in a group form. The European is very individualistic, you know, and by being individualistic, you're able to just like chop people up into little sections, I think.
All right. Well, if I was going to say, I'm really thinking about it now, in terms of what we want, I would say that it's respect.
And we have that same struggle here too, which is.
But part of the problem is, a lot of times we don't seem to respect ourselves.
Each other, yeah, as well.
So that, for example, a lot of cultural aspects in our community we really suffer from is the struggle right now in the United States about the N-word. That, you know, for me, it's a term that should be completely abolished.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it myself.
And yet, in our popular culture, it's niggas and bitches and hoes. So on the one hand, you're saying you want to be respected, but at the same time, we're using a terminology that doesn't actually show respect.
But then who's pushing that? Who's pushing that whole, like, who's actually pushing those words? It's not us. It's the commercial entities that are pushing this sort of music.
Nevertheless, you have black
using
people
black
who
artists, of
aggressively
course.
defend that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
We suffer that same here from that same
but they're called agents.
American media and music, and they do it.
It's
here.
very, very negative.
And we suffer the same
And it's
thing
very
with our
powerful.
people. And that's that individualistic thing. That's what I'm saying about that equality thing of trying to, I want to be like the I want to have money like him. I want to do that. I don't want riches like that. Somehow I got fucking millions of dollars. I got millions of dollars and that. I've actually had opportunity in my life. Problem is, it's often been blood money or ways I wouldn't, or even the mining jobs. They pay a lot. I've thought about it. A couple of years there, I've got a big bank account I could use for my community, but I don't.
But you're killing your community in the meantime.
I haven't wanted to do it. There is brothers who do it. They usually end up selling out and rolling and buying houses and money and. But if for some reason I had a big lot of money again, I wouldn't sit there. Don't get me wrong, my kids, my dad, my family would be okay, comfy, but I'd be looking after the community. I'm not going to sit there and bank that up, except to make it sustainable. But getting to that system, you're in a capitalist world, and it's not where we try to do those things. But it's those values that we're talking about. That's not community. It's not our black values to do that. But a lot of our young people are suffering the same thing and following the same music and disrespecting our women, our kids themselves, and it's moving completely away from us, and it's just as destructive. It's another method, really. It's just as destructive as other things, and it's colonising. And they're using black faces to do it. It's black faces pushing the colonisers' message and ideals. And because it's, our young people are following the same influence. And we're trying to stop that. And then, we've got other issues in the music industry.
Me as a hip-hop, like I've always loved hip-hop. So I can't blame hip-hop because I've seen the transition from hip-hop being proud. Like I grew up on Public Enemy. I grew up on Poor Righteous Teachers, X-Clan. These are all groups that made me proud to be black.
Well, we make a distinction. We have what we call gangster rap.
Yeah, that's what I say. I call it commercial music because to me, there's no art to it. It's made purely by an entity. It's made by a writer. They got people who make them dress a certain way. They got people who make their film clips a certain way. Music. It's a creation. It's created, you know. It's not. There's no art to it. It's made to be like the action movie of music. You know, it's as much violence as we can put in there to titillate the white audience because the majority of it's sold to the white audience still. 70% of all hip hop is bought by white people. So it's funding our destruction, you know, and they don't care because they find that shit to be amusing or something, I don't know.
Well, that's another conversation we could talk about. The appropriation, the infiltration.
Well, that's Australia. That's an Australian issue. I'm just talking about
it's America too.
But Australia's even worse because
what they think is a black image again, and they're pushing.
Exactly.
Really, again, it comes back to being,
it's a caricature.
But again, it's not a black image.
It's a caricature.
It's the oppressor's image.
Absolutely.
Like the whole thing about
But
like they say, oh, like smart is the new
Australia's got
gangster. I can't
advantages.
stand when people say like, oh, this is the new gangster. Like, why are we trying to glorify gangsters so much? Like, this is the gangster. Like now they go, oh, revolutionary is the new gangster. Like, what's it got to be gangster for? And everything's like, it's an interesting mindset where we're trapped in some of the youth. You know what I mean? And it doesn't help us in any way. That's the sad thing because it helps them. You know?
Yeah, so I'm a historian. And what my goal is, or what I try to do, is to use history to inspire our people, to give them a sense of pride in who they are. Now, there's a brother that I went to high school with named Stanley Tookie Williams III, and he's the founder of the organization called the Crips. I won't call it a gang.
Right.
I call it a social organization. And we knew each other and grew up together. And he went one way and I went another. And he was eventually executed. You know, I don't know about if you have it.
Yeah, I've heard of
Yeah,
it.
In the United States, we still have what's called capital punishment. There are more black people, by the way, in prison, black men in prison than are in universities in the United States.
It's the same. It's vastly
So-
different here too.
Tookie was convicted of 4 murders.
Yeah.
And while he was on death row, before he was executed, he wrote a book
Yeah.
about African history and culture and black children and poetry. And we reconnected because I had become something of a historian by that time. And he got me, you know, through another source to help me edit this book, which I still have the manuscript for. And this strong black man would sometimes call me at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because on death row you have certain privileges. They know they're going to kill you, so they give you certain privileges. And he would cry like a baby. Now, I don't think Tookie was afraid of anything, but he was so angry at himself because he didn't know what he came to know. Malcolm X is another example of that.
I was about to say that to you. Like,
Now, this person, this we call our black shining prince now, was at one time, even though his parents were Garveyites, and I know you know Marcus Garvey, who had chapters, by the way, in Australia. You've informed me of that.
Right.
Malcolm was a common criminal, drug dealer, thief, a pimp, a crook. I mean, he was a criminal. And then he was transformed through knowledge of self. And so that's my big thing right now. If you give people a knowledge, because everybody wants to feel proud of themselves. Everybody, I don't care who you are,
I think it's
wants
me
to feel
feeling-
like you contributed something to the world. You want to be able to hold your head up and have that degree of respect. And that is what is kept from us. The idea that our history begins with slavery or our history is irrelevant. And that's what I'm struggling to try to change. I think that everybody has their own mission, and these missions are interconnected. My brother, maybe his thing is a tent embassy. Maybe your thing, I don't know, is this radio program. Maybe your thing is a university professor. But all of us have something to contribute that's positive that will uplift our communities and, in essence, help make a better world.
I think that's the basic thing we have to do anyway, really. If we ain't helping each other, who are we helping? That's what we look at. You know?
Part of what we do is push the true history, because what's pushed in this country is fake history. They don't teach the true history. And even when it ever is, it's labelled as black history.
Oh, the black army.
What is
but
true history
What
to you?
they need, what they need to get black history is before they got here. When they got here, it's a shared history, and they need to own and acknowledge their part in it. And they like to call that black history. No, that's shared history. You did what you did to us. That's not my history. That's yours too. You just got to own up and own the country.
Indeed.
We didn't create that history.
Schools even barely any truth about what goes on in the past or the present.
Well, that's what I'm curious about. Maybe more than anything I hope to take from here is how you view history. Because history for many of us is dates and facts and what happened in a certain year. Aboriginal people don't look at history like that, do they? And that's a question. That's not a statement. Does that make sense? You understand where I'm trying to
Well, if we're
get?
going on a culture thing,
It's
that's
not as
different.
it's
If we're
not as
talking
lineal.
in like this level here, history, I mean, I look at it the same way as you, because I'm talking time dates through since they've been here. And what has or hasn't happened, and what has been hidden, and that, I guess the thing is, it's hard for people to study it because a lot of it's oral history.
That's what I'm wondering about.
Because they've hidden it, though. It's not just that we didn't write stuff, the whole culture thing.
Did you write things?
Well,
We wrote him in a different way.
yeah.
You know, we didn't write it in the European way of writing.
But we did have message sticks.
Yeah, we had the first postal system in the world.
But that's a culture thing again. As I said, when I was talking within this discussion, it's dates, times of massacres, of this, of what they did. Of people put this thing of things are in the past. My kids have a living great-grandfather who was a slave. And
literally a slave.
Yeah, he wasn't allowed to leave the land till he was a grown man. He was a slave. He was beaten for speaking his own language. His wife was the same. She used to get cold baths in winter and hot ones in summer, and all the abuse you could think of. This is their lives. They are, but like, their life just orally pass it on to my kids, their great-grandkids. That's not in the past. That's current.
That's alive.
Besides all the actual current issues, which are the same essentially, but that past issue isn't past, that's current, and those kids are learning that firsthand.
For me, I know history is a continuum, so like the present is made by the past, and the past and the present create the future. So unless we acknowledge the past to get to the present, we can never solve, like, it's all tied in together. Like, you can't untie something, you know what I mean? And that's why it's circular for me. I look at it still in a circular view that there's no beginning and no end, you know. We keep on moving in this circle of life. And it will go up, and we're going as we go up, but it's not a lineal thing, you know what I mean? Because that means there's a beginning and an end. For me, like, it's a circle, and we've always been here, we'll always be here. There's no beginning of our time on this world, there's no end of our time on this world. It's part of our continual time on this world.
And then politically, again, historic.
That's from a cultural view.
I like to learn history politically because you learn what methods they use methods from thousands of years ago currently. That's what the bloody football is. It's like the gladiator thing. It distracts us. And that was proven a couple of years ago with the marches up in Brisbane around a football match.
Yeah.
The mob couldn't even march to the game and then go watch it. Like, they just went and watched the game. That's old. So there's history in that context too.
Yeah, it's just we're living in a Roman world still, really.
You need it. Knowledge.
Yeah, it's a continuing problem. We'll get back into some music, and we'll come back into the discussion. This is the People's Radio.
Old city, old state. Face the fire. Capital city. Words lie. Home is where the heart is. Look back to where it started. On old surface tiller now, lounging at the park when we used to rock a beatbox. Cyphers in the garden. Now we on the lookout, busy asking where that time went. Walk through the streets, the city, so priceless. Surrounded by concrete blocks, the police sirens, and I love it. 15 years, my second mother. From sundown to sunup, but winter throughout summer. I'm promised the Queen ADL. I paid homage from weed heads to crackers and pills and alcoholics. Fond of the dopest scene, so full of content to losters who roam the strip and speak nonsense. I'm conscious wherever she at, I still want it. And if it ain't happiness yet, you know it's coming like cruising down the freeway. Sitting on 100 as the hills meet the shore. City submerged, forest fall. Better or worse till I'm buried but hurt. No concerns, show up my worth with every verse till I'm out, holding it down. Repping the South like I seen it all before. Come and go in my town. We got head too hard at it. Forget about practice. I'm talking is the only thing that ever mattered. I could never be alone. For sure that I keep it close whenever I rest my head. A place to call home. That's my city.
The city's so proud. I'ma hold it down till I'm out. I can take my place. On this wall, the same house. My name at the church. I down.
City, your churches.
From the bay to the south and up north. Represent my case.
Got a plane.
From every park bench, corner block to the street, the house.
Beginners, rough murder capital, what up? Second time around, hit me on the head, that blunt. Yeah, I dig it, feeling that style, and I ain't kidding. When I get up in the morning, wake up, blow your kisses where I kick it. Heads roll quick, and me, business we got. Wannabe gangbang clicks in every district. Infinite amount of talent, just peep the torrents. It looks like there might be something in the water, and I'm sure all the dopest few deserves a chorus. Put your hands together, join me in applauding now. Forever calling me back whenever out of town, missing her. I'm stuck in the traps. I'd rather trap till there's nothing left. What to expect from the north to the east to the south to the west? Dirty up the name. Yo, you can keep it for yourself. It's a place to call home. And this is what my city.
The city's so proud, I'ma hold it down till I'm out. I can take my place. On the floor, the flame house, my name at the church. I down.
City your churches.
From the bay to the south and up north, I can represent my place.
Down the plains.
From every park bench to corner block to the streets, the house, my place.
This is the People's Radio. We're getting back into it. We're just talking about how we're falsely labelled as being nomadic people when it's been proven that we had lands and we stayed on land. So I'm not sure how we were nomads, but you know, it sort of validates what they're trying to talk about us, that we wandered all over this country.
Well, I have a question. Traditionally, what has been the role of women in Aboriginal society? Let me preface that. Historically in Africa, women were very powerful.
Yep.
For example, in ancient Egypt. Egypt is in Africa, by the way. It's always been in Africa. A lot of people don't know that. I've been to Egypt 22 times, and it's been in Africa every time. You know, and I suspect it will be for a long time.
It didn't move.
No, it hasn't moved. And in ancient Egypt, women were very powerful. They could will and inherit forces. Totally unlike Greece and Rome.
Same thing.
A woman was very, very subservient. In fact, the line of descent was traced to the female side of the family. What historically has been the role of women in Aboriginal society?
Same, pretty much. I'm like, my people are matriarchal. So we trace from my mothers. We don't trace from like whoever your mother is who you are. From my tribe, it might be different in other tribes.
In the country, but yeah,
It's equality.
A good lot of them matriarchal, but regardless, and we also had like men and women's business, but power equality was always extremely equal, or the women had it. So
we have no chief. We have no chief here. But we don't have a chief system, so you can't have like. Unless there's no way to put the man above when it's a circle, you know what I mean? So there's equal power between older women and older men.
Actually, it's funny, is that this Redfern Embassy is the first one that's a woman's camp, but it's run by an aunties, and Auntie Jenny is the main one running it, but it's a woman's camp, and women have the run of the camp in that way. Like I'm there as the one who helps run the camp, but it's a woman's camp, and I have to respect all of that, and the power and the say is for women, and that it has to be a place for women, not men.
All right, let me ask.
In that, like, it's not the men aren't being there, but you know what I mean? It's not a men's space, as in we don't have the say, and yeah.
Let me ask another question. We were talking about this earlier before the show. Do you think that there's a tendency to lump Aboriginal people together as though they're one?
Oh yes, there's 500 different nations here, and we all have had our own dialect, our own mob, our own
customs,
ways, our own laws, and that is a big issue. That everyone wants to lump you the same. Or white people who have an experience with one mob now think they're extremely knowledgeable on the rest of them.
No, what happens is white people go up to the Northern Territory, they get a skin name, and then they come down and try to talk down to us down here like they know more because they went up to, so a real Aboriginal.
But even if they went outside of that community up there, that skin name would mean crap. Like,
Right.
And that's if they were given a real skin name to begin with. But we won't go into
What
that.
is the skin name?
It's just like a totem name, you know. It's basically like you're being part of those people now. Like I was saying, how we have our culture is made to absorb people. You know, it's made
also
to.
certain, it was used as a way like certain same skin type couldn't marry up with each other and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's more of a north central desert thing than down here. But, yeah.
So the desert people would be different than, say, the...
Everyone would be different. There's 500 different nations. Some are really small and next to each other. Others are big nations.
Gamilaroi, we got the second largest one.
But-
The largest is Wiradjuri. So that's they're both New South Wales tribes.
Everyone ran under their own. I mean, obviously the land and the songlines would dictate a lot of people's culture, and that's how everything, I guess, we work together with the land and each other. But each place had their own nation.
It's own government, It's a nation, basically. It's like
and their own ways of doing things.
Koori is a nation.
Koori is a modern identity. So Koori is a way for us to give our own label to us. You know, instead of us saying we're
Aboriginal. It's kind of a
Aboriginal.
New South Wales thing. It's not a nation at all.
And Victoria.
Yeah, New South Wales and Victoria, so it covers many nations, but it's kind of that area, that south.
Like Murray, it's Queensland.
Yeah, Murray's up Queensland, and then you got just heaps you wouldn't want to insult, but there's over WA you got Noongas, you got
Nunga, South
Nunga,
Australia.
South Australia, you got
Palawa,
Yamaji in WA,
Tanami, Tasmania.
etc., etc. But that isn't a nation. That's kind of like you said, and within those names, well, especially New South Wales, that's a huge place, and Victoria.
Okay.
It's the way we labelled ourselves for once instead of them labelling us all the time, you know what I mean? So, all right, this is our label for ourselves. Instead of you giving us Aboriginal or Indigenous or Native, we're Kooris from, you know, that's just... Murray, from what I understand, is in the Gamilaroi, it means the people anyway or something like that, isn't it? My people. So it's like labelling by our labels instead of the outsider labelling us, you know?
There's a group of people in India called the Dalits.
Yep.
Yeah.
And these are the people historically known as outcasts or untouchables.
Yeah.
So the term Dalit is an attempt to define for themselves and apply a label for themselves. And, you know, one of the things, too, is that I guess the most outspoken groups of Dalits call themselves the Dalit Panthers.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And they name themselves after the Black Panthers in the United States. And you have a Black Panther Party in Australia.
We did.
Several chapters, actually. Yeah. New South Wales, Sydney, Brisbane.
You know, next year marks the 50th anniversary of the birth of the Black Panther Party for self-defense in the United States.
It's great.
And it's a big thing. I think it's very important to honor those people who have made tremendous sacrifices for us to have what little we have today.
Yeah. I think I sent you a link too. There's the showing that Sisters movie in the States now, the Black Panther Woman.
Yeah.
It's currently on 5 cities, I think it's being shown in.
You've sent me some wonderful things, Benjamin. I'm very, very, seriously.
I'm inspired by you.
I'm very, very grateful, you know, for the relationship that we've developed over the last year or two. And I suspect that it will get better and better.
I'm grateful too, because myself, I've been following your work since MySpace days, so... That's a long time from MySpace to Facebook.
You still consider me a friend, huh?
Yeah, I've learned of a great...
sarcasm, man.
I know, but I'm just saying, I've learned a great deal from you myself.
Yeah, well, we have a lot to learn from each other. Yeah. And that will inspire Black people around the world. Yeah. You see, again, my ancestors were captured and enslaved at a certain point in history and taken out of what we call the door of no return. And now some of us have gone back, you know, to what we call the door of return. And that's one of the most remarkable things about our people all over the world, our strength and our resilience. Look at you. Look at all the things sisters and brothers here have suffered. And yet we're still in this room tonight to talk about regaining our power and our place in the world. That's a remarkable story.
Yeah, we are definitely a strong people. I don't know if the other people could go through what we go on through. I think the Europeans would be complaining a bit.
No, well, I've been interested in indigenous people of this country since the 1970s. I was a university student.
You've been here several times, haven't you, too?
This is my 8th time here in Australia itself. I always call it Aboriginal Australia. I never come to see the opera house or none of that. I'm interested in none of that. But I remember going to the university one night and picking up a newspaper on the bus. And I read about people who were scalped and pushed over cliffs and, you know, decapitated. And I wondered, who were these people that the British seemed to feel so compelled to treat in such a manner? And it was always just fascinating to me. Australia was one of the places I most wanted to visit as a youth. And so coming here, it's just a remarkable story. I think that this is also, of all the places I've been, and I've been to 107 countries now in the last 16, 17 years. it's the most spiritual place I've ever been. It's like this land exudes spirituality. I can't explain it in any other way.
It's definitely an old country. It's got its own soul. But yeah, we always welcome you. You're always welcome to come back. So hopefully with many more times we'll be coming back to the country.
Well, I look forward to it.
We'll get back into some music and we'll come back to one more discussion. This is the People's Radio, the voice of the people, not the machine.
I was born 84 in a small town located west of the border of WA. On Christmas Day at 6 in the morning, Mum said, best present she'd ever get was me, and she's not that easy to impress. And I settled, named after James the Apostle. Second to 2 kids, I got told we were special, and my cousins, Ty, Kimberly and Levi, I like my brothers, always keep them close in the mind. And plus the girls, Tamika, Rakia, Tani and Molly and Kira, Heather, Nara, and Renee, so many I can't mention their names. I got the family close, no matter what the case. To relocate to the top end, a taste for the tropics, a place to call home for the next decade. For a change, moved to the city of Adelaide. Couldn't picture at the time things would never be the same. Got me thinking, what's it being like in the city for a country kid? Everyone so busy but in prospect. I grew up with my best friends, Robert, Jeff, Seb and Jess. We're 5 brothers, took our separate paths to fulfill whatever promised. Good old days gone, but not forgotten. Had a music for a father, an artist for a mom. They encouraged me to dream, to do whatever I loved. And growing up, my old man, he got me on the drums at the age of 8. My sister playing the keys. If music was the life that I wanted for me, I found my niche. All I had to do was believe, to put my head down, focus, wheels in motion. Received an accolade, now it's time for an album. Everything was nice, as good as could be. And that's about the time that I met the girl of my dreams. Girl of my dreams didn't turn out to be. In the midst of a breakup, now feeling bittersweet, incomplete, or at peace. I'm waiting on the outcome, a year down the track, and I'm asking, where's the album? My life, hard enough as it is to find a time or to get inspired. It's got me walking on a line, a foundation. Expectations are high to fulfill every need, the only hunger inside. So at the present, trying to make good first impression. Can't believe we made it this far. For my parents, know I love you. Of course you know I'm placing on above you. My sister, thanks for helping out your little brother. The friends and the fam that I lost along the way. It's never been the same since the day that you left. The future in the night, you playing your cards right. Stop and think, take a look at someone else's life like this.
That was Jimbala with My Life. We're coming back into the discussion again. It's been a good discussion. I'm enjoying it. Learning some things, you know. Hopefully inspiring some people out there.
Well, here's a point. You know, one of the people that we talk about in the United States, one of our great heroes, is Martin Luther King. Everybody's heard of Dr. King. Mm-hmm. But Dr. King is also somebody who has been, how should we say, exploited.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now you have people talking about the dream as though they were supporters of Dr. King. Mm-hmm. You know, Dr. King has a speech you can download on YouTube called Black and Beautiful. You would have thought I wrote the speech. Mm-hmm. And Martin Luther King, a lot of people don't know, went to Africa numerous times. He was in Africa when the country that really inspired many of us, Ghana, became independent on March 6, 1957. And Dr. King was the first prominent American of any race to come out against the U.S. war in Vietnam.
Right.
And Dr. King organized a Poor People's March. And so my point is that he's been very much exploited. But what I'm learning about that, and when we talked about the Panthers, is that our struggle is a global struggle. And I think that we make a mistake when we separate it as though it's the Aboriginal thing, it's an African thing, it's a Brazilian thing, et cetera, et cetera. It's interesting that until 1967, as I understand, in January 67, when you had the referendum, that the indigenous people up to that point were considered flora and fauna as plants and animals. But 1967 is also a time in the United States when black people are in the streets. They're burning cities down in the United States. And the decolonization movement and the Black Power movements in Africa were growing. I think it's very, very important that we look at our struggle as a global struggle and not a regional struggle or an isolated struggle.
And a continuous struggle.
It's very important to make that point.
And a continuous struggle too, I think. You know, it's not like it's not separated. It's part of the same struggle. Same people doing it to us all over the places too. We got to look at culprits as well. So that's very true. What were you saying? What was that point you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I'm hearing a few different things that, or remembering rather, that we were saying during the break. So many good things are said during the break, and we were talking about how
we need to go on the mics on the break.
Oh, we just should keep it going during the break. That history is recreated, so a new history is recreated for you, or kept from you, or distorted, so that new identities can be forged that are useful for other people to exploit. It's incredibly important. So when you talk about Dr. King, and you talk about...
It's like Gandhi, how they always like to bring up Gandhi.
Oh, indeed.
Racist man.
Yeah, he's one of the most racist.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Very...
One of the Dalits don't like him.
Man. You have to keep in mind
but
that...
even like in that respect, like for Martin Luther King, like they always like to push the non-violent side of him.
Which is where I was going. Exactly. Which was where I was going.
I was going to say Mandela stuffed up when he came here.
Yeah.
We supported him for
He didn't
his
support
time.
us.
When he came here, he took money off our government to ignore us and not talk to us. And he literally walked past some of our people
Past Foley.
at the Parliament House in Canberra. He wouldn't engage with any of our people and ignored us. And that was a slap in the face because we supported that movement the entire time. And again, that's what you don't idolise any man, as I was saying earlier, or any person. You don't idolise any person because they're all people and they all got faults.
I would definitely have said, I mean, when you, it's a cynical view, but sometimes I heard one of saying says that if you want to keep your heroes, don't meet them. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely true, man. Sometimes
it's very cynical.
I can't
very
say
cynical, but I think it speaks to what happens when you place either individuals who are real or those you wait for in this sort of, idealized messianistic place.
I think it's when you have an unrealistic expectation of something.
Yeah, unrealistic expectations, exactly.
You listen to all these people and you, like, of course they're saying good things, but they're still a human being.
Yeah, they're still
and if we expect them to be like immaculate or omnipresent.
No, this thing about Nelson Mandela, that's just criminal.
Yeah, that was part of it. But he's done it to his own people.
Pass on that.
Yeah. He did it to his own people, but look at South Africa. Like, it's not like...
But there are people also like your great heroes, Pimmelway, or Marcus Garvey. I'm going to sing their praises. Although I recognize their faults, I don't think that makes them less of a heroic figure.
Yeah.
But this thing about Nelson Mandela, I did not know that, and that's very disappointing.
Yeah, that's
very disappointing.
Yeah,
especially for somebody who struggled that you supported.
That's that's right. But
and that was he knew about it too. He knew about us helping him too, because he was in contact. His wife was in contact with the Aboriginal unions out here. And what did we do? We broke into the South African team and we stole all their jerseys and stuff. Like we harassed them, any way we could when they came here. We didn't do that for us because we weren't. Right. We were going for the same apartheid. We understood apartheid.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, what do you think about when a sister like Serena Williams comes here and wins the Australian Open Tennis Championship? And then talks about how the Australians are the greatest fans and what a wonderful... Now, those things are very disappointing to me. Because these are not stupid people.
Me and my brother have the same conversations all the time.
With
hip-hop artists.
People from overseas. But also, we have our sports people don't speak up half the time.
Our own indigenous sport athletes.
A lot of our own sports people don't speak up at all.
But I have the same problem.
They have to toe the line, I guess, to keep their money and their role. I don't know. A lot of people who have been historically step out and speak get shunned somehow.
And I have the same issue with a lot of the hip hop artists that come here. In America, they're very conscious. They're very pro-black. They come to Australia. They seem to leave that at customs. And they start to hang out with yuppies and ignore us altogether. And
they're coming here to make $1, and now people are 3% of the population. Not much money in that.
But like you kind of see, you can't be pro-black and then just sell it straight away. That's what gets me. Like, don't be pro-black to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, what is it? You're just selling something. Yeah, like how pro-black.
And yet, actually, we get certain gangster rappers like Exhibit who come here and hung in communities.
And the Snoop and the Game, they hung out with us.
Snoop did other bad shit, I won't go into
it. But he spent time. He spent time. Like,
now, early on, we were talking about Jack Johnson.
That's what I want to come back to.
And you know, in my life, I'm older than all of you all.
Right.
In my lifetime, the greatest hero was Muhammad Ali. Because not only was he the greatest heavyweight champion in the world, but he stood for something. And he was
stood
penalized for
that. He stood by it, yeah.
Now I don't see that. I don't see that on the part of a Kobe Bryant or many of these other figures. Here's a brother I have a lot of respect for, Magic Johnson. But generally speaking,
I like
Michael Jordan,
what's that for brother?
they're about making money.
Marshawn Lynch, he's been
And they're prepared.
Let's not get it twisted though.
But Lynch does not have the status.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's like a political, but
But
I
you
like
are
how he
right.
stands up
He
for
is
himself.
something of a role model.
Yeah, he does stand up for him. He doesn't let him try and control what he's trying to say. And he beats himself. He doesn't know. I'm not trying to be out here dancing for you people.
But you also have idiots like
Yeah.
this Charles Barkley, you know, who it just makes me sick to my stomach.
You got to look at people. Barkley's been getting a pay packet for how long? Like,
because he says the right things.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
He says the right
Put
things.
him in a position that they want him to be.
He wouldn't be in a position to say those things if he didn't say the right things.
Exactly.
He's perfect for that
There's
position.
a historian in the United States, he's an ancestor now, named Carter G. Woodson. And Carter G. Woodson began in 1926 what's called Negro History Week, which became Black History Month.
Right.
And he wrote a book called Miseducation of the Negro. And he said in that book, if you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. There's a brother from South Africa named Stephen Biko who said something similar to that. He said the greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So what we're trying to do is break those chains of mental and psychological slavery. And it's very, very difficult.
I always thought that Mandela made it to jail. Big guy didn't.
And Mandela was a godfather, if I'm not mistaken, to Stephen Biko's children. In fact, the first time I came to Australia, I was with the youngest sons of Stephen Biko. And I don't know. Life is full of contradictions, I suppose.
Well, they were nothing like their father.
And we could all sell out if that's what we chose to do. I mean, if it was just about making money, we could all do that. But a man who has principle, or a woman who has principle, is somebody that you have to have respect for.
I guess that's why sometimes you look at athletes and sometimes people put so much
we make them into role models too sometimes.
That's true.
Because role models, they're athletes too. You know, they got to realize.
Could just leave a guy who's making that much money, who has access to kind of wealth. He doesn't have to do anything. And he has much more on the line.
But he wasn't put into the position he was because of his intellect. He was put there for what his physical abilities were.
But you can jeopardize that based on saying something that's not liked by the majority. Which is why
Muhammad Ali, he went to jail for it, but he went to jail. He could have chosen not to go to jail, but he stood by his principles.
I don't know if he went to jail, but his title was taken away from him. His ability to fight was
didn't serve time,
taken away from him when he was in his prime.
You
know.
I thought he didn't serve time, but I remember. That's right.
If he did, it was minimal. But I know it's
he was
like 10
years he wasn't allowed to box.
Still, like he stood by that. If you think you're the world champion, you could have easily said, "Nah, I want to keep on being a world champ." It's not like he just lost his normal belt. He lost the world championship. You know?
Exactly, another one that stands.
How much money? And that was big money.
The system that we fight against is very powerful
and very corruptive,
and
it's also seductive.
It will wear you down if you try to fight it by yourself. That's why we need organization. We say that organization decides everything. And that's what we have to do: is seek to be organized, and again, not just respond to an individual crisis, but to have a sustained level of organization. You know, I think sometimes about what my statement in life will be. Now, when I'm doing historical presentations, for example, I talk about heroes and sheroes of ancient Africa, people like Imhotep, for example, who lived thousands of years ago, and yet we talk about them as though they're with us in the room tonight. And I say to my students when I challenge them, what will your statement in life be? And what will future generations say about you? And when you have to face the ancestors and they ask you, what did you do to advance the cause of your people? You know, what will you say? And I think it's important that we challenge people with these kinds of things, that it's not just about making a lot of money, but it's what you do with the money. I just left Vanuatu. Europeans own all the hotels there. They own almost white Australians. They own almost all the land. The Chinese own all the business establishments. And I think about what we could do with all the wealth that we have in our hands instead of buying cars and et cetera, things that are very transient.
Even just within the wealth within Black America, like how much wealth is actually within
a lot.
The purchasing power.
How much?
So we would rather spend it on a long weave that makes us look like a European. Or, here's a big thing in the Caribbean now, skin bleaching.
Absolutely.
There's also a big thing in Africa.
Absolutely.
Where people say, I don't want to look white, I just want to look nice. But we equate
the European mindset
that with a European look.
The European ideal of beauty becomes...
So we have all of these issues, but again, what keeps me from losing all my mind, because I lost most of it already, I'm pretty crazy as it is, as you can no doubt tell, is what we have been through. Now, my ancestors were captured and enslaved and branded with hot irons and treated like animals. In parts of West Africa, the French actually had dungeons for children. I've been in these places. And then they were put on these ships, or these floating coffins.
Floating Brothel's a good doco you should read.
Indeed.
Good book.
And dehumanized, animalized. And yet, still... there's a spark of humanity in us that has not been distinguished. Black people, African Americans are the first people to say, I don't see color. I don't see race. I'm just a person. I'm just a human being.
Take my
other people
identity.
exploit that.
Take my identity.
Yeah. And I would say I see the same thing here. A sense of humanity that is remarkable when you consider how we have been assaulted for such a long period of time.
I always say that too, but if you look at the history of it too, we've always treated them with respect. Doesn't matter who came to our lands, we made sure they were all right first. And that was never to our own benefit, but that's the problem. And we fed them for 30 years when they first came here. We looked, if they like...
How many times did that happen?
A good book, The Floating Brothel.
I never heard of that.
It's about how to come here, but just remote kids and shit, they did the kids are there. But, okay, and there's letters and that to show this, but the governor at the time, there was only men in their colony here, and they were raping our little boys, not our women and that. They're getting into our little boys and into their animals, their sheep and all of that.
The floating brothel.
This is the doc. This is the book, and it was a doco. But yeah, it's a book. But there's letters where the governor writes to England, to the king or queen, and goes, "This is what's happening. We need women." So they rounded up all the women in the jail, chucked them on a boat.
We need white women.
On the way over here, they every pit stop. Well, on the crew obviously got into the women. But every pit stop, they hoard the women out for supplies and things like that. There's babies born across from all these different countries on the way over here. This is White Australia's bloodline. Great people. And then they've got people from across the trip. These babies were born on the way here. And then when they got here, they didn't make it off the boat. They got onto the shoreline for a week, or I think it was 2 weeks, but it was at least a week straight, just an orgy, raping and drinking, raping the women and drinking the rum. And then these women have gone into governesses and high society and da-da-da, and that's the beginning of this country. That's the people and the stock. So they're not very nice people from what they're stock, but then they love their white power oi shit. Well, you've got a little bit of everything in you anyway, because that's what happens.
You're not actually pure white to begin with.
Good dog, good book.
Would it be true? Well, the book I read too was Blood on the Wattle by Bruce Elder.
That's a good book.
But would it be true to say that many prominent white people in this country actually have Aboriginal ancestry? No.
Nah. Okay. In some areas there'll be more, and I'll have that dirty little secret kind of thing because they shame of it like that.
That's only because they had the money to be able to hide their kids too. You remember? Because if they weren't, if they didn't have money, that was taken away if they were mixed kids back in the days.
Right.
But
so how was this college, Tranby College, doing?
Tranby.
Is it still here?
So the one at Redfern, isn't it?
Tranby's over Glebe. Yeah, it's still going.
Yeah, it's still going.
Yeah.
When I would come here, I came here for the first time in 1998. And it seemed to me that every time I went to a program, the people who spoke at the program would begin by saying, I want to thank the traditional owners of the land for allowing me to be here.
Acknowledgement.
And so that's what I would do. I would go every time I would come, I would go somewhere I thought was significant. First time I went to Canberra, to the Tent Embassy there, and another time Tranby College. And just ask the people, do I have permission to be here? So I always wondered what became of Tranby and if it was still in existence.
Still going.
Yeah. At the moment, they're actually shutting down a lot of the
funding
unis and programs for black fellas in the uni and the alternative entries that were giving people the ability to catch up and get. I mean, I went and studied at 30.
Yeah, I'm doing it now, and they shut it all down. We got no services for us now.
And what you'll hear from like Australians is that the reason why this needs to happen is because Aboriginals are getting too much stuff. They're making too much money. They're taking too much money. We've already given so much. This is the kind of thing I've heard in classrooms now. These are supposed to be the progressive students.
Wow,
they're getting too much.
Rumours in this country that we get a new car every year.
Oh yeah, you're swimming in it.
Yeah, I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting, bro.
I'll tell you something else too. Now, I've taken a couple of groups here, and I remember, I forget where we were, but I remember a white woman saying there were no Aboriginal people in this country. Is that a common perception that some people have?
Ignorant. Some people are, yeah, they are.
Some overseas, especially.
I've said some people...
This was a white woman in Australia.
I've heard some white Australians telling us to go back to Africa.
Wow.
I mean,
isn't that interesting?
Like that's the only reason they're saying that is because
in this embassy down here, we've been there 10 months. We're in the middle of the city, right here.
Yeah,
we've had
KKK
KKK hoods up the top, standing up there. We've had
next to the Tongans.
What? I don't want to get kicked off, so I'm just. we've had white people who used to drive past every other day telling us to fuck off, aim you black cunts, which we all are still trying to work out where he wanted us to go exactly.
Where's the home?
Yeah. But this is the mentality and what we cop down here. Oh, a tiny bit of what we cop. But this is in the middle of the city in this day and age. The things that are walking around.
Yeah, like I said, terror analysis is still on the books in this country. It shows you the mentality of the country when...
Meaning that there were no people here when the
land uninhabited. It means land uninhabited.
Empty for them.
I think that was
at least even the Germans.
Farming and houses, that's why they try and push.
Even the Germans admit to what they did. Germans admit to the genocide they committed. I think it's only us and American people that are still waiting for some sort of rights to what happened to us. You're still waiting for the 40 acres and a mule, and we're still waiting for recognition.
Some black people got 40 acres and a mule.
Yeah, some.
Yeah, a handful did.
Yeah. It wasn't supposed to be for everybody, but
But we would say that slavery just takes different forms.
Yeah.
For example, the high rate of incarceration of black men today.
Same here.
Which started right after the end of the war.
Different forms of assault against black men. Like you have the effeminization of the African man, right?
Destruction of the family unit.
Or you have this idea that black men should not be with black women anymore. This whole notion that there's no such thing as race, which it is a social construct. There's no question about
it's
that.
A cultural construct,
but if you say that race is not real, you can't. That's like saying racism is not real.
Yeah,
the physical reality. I mean, physical appearance is a reality.
Yeah, that's real.
Color.
It's real.
It's also cultural.
Right.
The scientists like to say we're all the human race, but we're different ethnicities. But the point is, we are.
You get treated differently.
You take people's identity. You take their lived experience. You take all of that by trying to say, I don't see none of that, and you ignore your own white privilege.
It's trying to get out of white privilege. That's what it is. I don't see my white privilege. I don't see no one else's privilege. There is no privilege. I don't see no colour. It's interesting. It's a new thing, but they saw colour back 10 years ago.
They see it when it's convenient.
Yeah, it's silly. It's a conversation. It's silly. I mean, you can talk about how the originators of the concept of race came up with ideas where they said, what they were saying that we were different species. Obviously, that's not tenable. Everyone here is the same species. However, the fact is the people from South Africa look different from people from Norway, typically. Different from people from, say, East China. Different from people from, say, South America. Those physical differences are real.
Look different to the people in West Africa.
Sure, and we can get even more.
Aboriginal people are the same across our country.
Fact is, physical human differences do exist.
Differences,
and to pretend like they don't.
Yeah, it's just a
nonsensical.
stereotype of trying to make this is the idea of what this person looks like. You know, we have to everything has to fit a little perfect label in the European mindset. You know, what I mean, it has to be labelled, it has to be compartmentalised.
Yeah.
Unless it's not, you know, it's wild. What's going on?
Well, I know we're running down on time, but I do want to say I think I can speak for millions of black people in the United States who say that we love you and we think of you as family and we are inspired by you. And I will have many stories to tell when I go back. Again, it's been an honor to be here.
You're always welcome.
I consider it a privilege and a blessing, and I'm grateful to you, and I salute your struggle.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, Onk. And we, you know, it's a mutual thing. You know, we have it's a two-way street. We have to both be on. You know, we can't just be a one-way street. So we both have to come together. We can. It's only strength and unity. It's nothing. You know, it can't be anything but a good thing. So, on that note,
before you go, just to remember again, Thursday the 20th. Get down and stop the forced closure of Aboriginal communities.
And also Thursday night at the Marrickville.
And global call to action. Check it out on Facebook. But at 12:30 down at Parliament House. Get down there. Thursday the 20th. We got to stop all these communities getting shut down.
And also it's Thursday the 19th. Today's the 17th.
Oh well. It says 20th here. It's this Thursday, regardless.
2 days' time.
Yeah.
All right, 2 days' time. Also on Thursday, make sure you come check us out at the Marrickville Community Centre. We got the uncle who's going to be doing a presentation on the global history of black liberation. We're going to have
Jenny Monroe.
Jenny Monroe is there as well. So everyone come down. It'll be a good night.
Jenny from the Tent Embassy.
All right, that's us for another week. We hope you enjoyed the show. I enjoyed it. And as always, this is the voice of the people, not the machine.
These harsh streets, turn the radios up for a king's speech. Dictions of ambition must believe. Hey future, keep a solid vision on me. Native lingo, history is skin deep. My only sin was the color of my skin, so I must sin till pride emancipate mental slavery. And they said we would fail in time. Showed them up, we stood the test of time. I blame it on time, but regain it on time. So I claim it on time. Put soul in this image. This is music for the free spirit. Inspiration for those who really need it. Not those who listen, but those who really feel it.
Songs of our time, teachers of our story.
Let it be written in the mazes. Survival of a culture is the reason that we made it. Yeah.
Spirit ties, keepers of our story.
And the show will go on. Worship blood unks, we came to tell the world. From a father to a daughter, the language of a mother to a son. Rituals since time begun. The circle of life is never broken. My ancestors of time have spoken. Free the slave of your mind, get open. A manuscript for a future, here's to hoping. Let it breathe just a little bit. Hey world, believe just a little bit. And if you can see in an etiquette of respect, birth to peace becomes relevant. But that concept alone is irrelevant to ambition, such tests are heaven sent. That's why we grab mics and go ridiculous and scream represent till the whole world be feeling it. Yeah.
Songs of our time, teachers of our story.
Let it be written in the mazes. Survival of a culture is the reason that we made it.
teachers all that